everybody, welcome to TonicWith. This is episode number 10 of the series where we meet interesting people from the world of talent. Today we're joined by Marina Stasenko from Airproducts. Marina is going to give us her insight into the world of graduate recruitment and in terms of her view, I guess, on how the market is developing and what strategies people can employ to gain competitive advantage. I'm really looking forward to that conversation. First of all, I wanted to say thanks very much to you for joining us today. If you look in the show notes for this particular session, you'll see timestamps that give you shortcuts to areas of particular interest. And at the same time, we've also built out a narrative around the content that we discuss. So if you haven't got 25 minutes, which is what we're hoping this session will end up being, you can flip straight through to the bit that interests you. So, without further ado, hi Marina, how are you doing?
I'm great. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. Marina, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Airproducts as well.
Yeah, certainly. Well, hello everyone. I'm Marina Stasenko, as Tom introduced myself. I currently work as the European Graduate Program Manager for Airproducts, which is not a well-known company, but we are leading industrial gases. My remit is graduates, but anything entry level as well, from apprentices, school leavers, work experience through to PhDs and MBAs as well. So it's quite a bit of a broad role across Europe.
Okay, so tell us more about Airproducts first of all. So I know hydrogen, I know helium, and I know there's lots of that knocking around in Airproducts, but tell me more about what Airproducts actually do with that.
So we work out new technologies, but also obviously the core of our business is gas. So in essence, we separate air into its natural components and then distribute it out to our customers. We have got quite a few exciting projects like Tees Valley in Middlesbrough, which is energy from waste. So that's quite new for us. And obviously, where there is new, we'll try to get new talent in as well.
Okay. We were talking beforehand, and you mentioned engineering as being one of those areas that you're interested in bringing people into the business with that background. So you've chosen one of the toughest recruiting environments in one of the tightest graduate recruitment parts of the economy to work with. That must have peculiar challenges.
Indeed. I mean, when I joined a year ago, when I joined Airproducts, coming from a commercial world, I didn't understand probably or appreciate the difficulty in sourcing engineers and anything that's STEM related. So, you know, graduates probably is a little bit easier than experienced hires, but equally I work along the talent management teams who are hiring experienced people. So it is quite challenging, and every networking event I do attend externally, everyone seems to be experiencing the same challenges across industries, but also across different countries as well.
Okay, wow. Well, we'll come back to that. I'm interested in your view on how talent attraction works across different markets and what we can learn in the UK or what other countries can learn from the UK in terms of how things are approached. One thing I wanted to get to first, though, because I'm really interested in the person who sits behind the professional as much as the things that they do in their working life. Can you tell us a little bit about you? What's your background?
Okay, so I have been in the working world, as it were, for about 7 years. Graduated from UCL with journalism and languages, then moved into my first permanent graduate role, which was supply chain management, nothing to do with my degree whatsoever. Moved around the business quite a bit and ended up in HR, as majority of the people probably do in the talent management arena, looking after the entry-level population. Outside of work, I guess I don't want to go into career but at this point too much, but outside of work, we recently purchased a house and we're doing quite a bit of renovation, which has taken us just over 2 years. We didn't actually appreciate how much there needs to be done, and also I'm a little bit financially probably constrained at this point by now.
Well, welcome to the world of home ownership. So this is more than a lick of paint that you're giving there. Your new
Indeed.
place. Is this a complete revamp, or?
Yes, from kind of taking radiators out through to changing the boiler system and everything else, and knocking walls down to extensions. So wow. Yes, that's what kind of proves me for living with a carpenter.
Well, that's handy though, surely, isn't it? having
Yeah,
a
it is. Yes, it is.
Have you
But
ever tried
I do
finding?
want,
Have you
I
ever
do
tried
want him to
finding a
go to work.
carpenter who's? Have you ever tried finding a carpenter who you're not attached to?
Uh, no, I think he does most of the work, so my partner's okay. I'm just looking forward to him going to work now, to a proper full-time job.
Fair enough. So you did a journalism degree, then you went to supply chain, and it sounds like it was a bit of a happenstance or an accident that you found your way into a career in HR. Is that right? Or
Definitely, yes. I never thought I would. Yes, I do like working with people, but I think one of those taboo things is actually if you work in HR, you don't really like people. But yes, I did end up in HR because it was just one of the projects that I was put on, talent management, and then it was at that point I was actually had a bit of this is what I actually like, and this is what I'm good at, and this is where I can actually make a difference. So that kind of spurred me on to work more in the talent management arena as well as talent acquisition.
okay, so if you went back to that aha moment, that thing that showed you that a career in HR was actually going to be really interesting and matched you quite well. What was it specifically that tipped you over?
For me, it was around the career progression that I was tangibly seeing from an entry-level population, and actually the mentoring bit, which I really enjoyed. And maybe it's not so much HR, more of a centre of excellence, but more around kind of succession planning and seeing people progress, which is a real driver for me, both professionally and personally.
So it might be a slightly tenuous link, but if you look at what you're doing in your personal life, which is renovating and developing a house, and take that through very, very tenuously to you're renovating and developing people in their careers, for want of a better expression, is that sounds like there's a thread that takes the things that motivate you as a person through to the things that might motivate you from a career perspective. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, change management is a big thing, and I'm really passionate about that, and making things better, improving things, looking at it from a different perspective. So basically, upgrade in any way possible. That's totally me.
Okay. More incremental change is a good thing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what was the thing that drew you to Airproducts more than any other business?
For me, it was actually the bit that the engineering bit that I wasn't aware of, the unknown, as it were. I have previously worked for Tesco and DHL, and that is a completely different talent pool altogether. Yes, every business experiences similarities, but I guess for me it was more around the engineering stream, but also having a remit for Europe, encompassing of 12 countries, which really attracted me. So I would say I was probably honestly attracted more to the role than I was to the company, but I've grown to love the company as well.
Great. And which 12 countries are you covering? Are you predominantly Western Europe, or is it?
No, we've got a real mix from Russia through to Western Europe, through to Northern Europe, so France, Czech Republic, Hungary, and of course the UK, the island.
Okay, so very different markets.
Absolutely, yes.
My experience of working with people in the CIS and Eastern Europe is that it's very, very different, both in terms of I guess the development of the market as well, but also the attitude of people in terms of being very, very ambitious and very mobile in Eastern Europe, whereas in Western Europe much less mobile, but equally, the ambition comes through, but in different ways. What's the biggest learn you've had from working across those different markets?
I think I can comment from kind of entry-level and graduate perspective, because it will probably vary slightly differently towards the experienced hire market. But I would definitely agree the flexibility and mobility. Maybe even expectations is a little bit lower in terms of from the employer perspective. In terms of proactiveness, I would probably say graduates are a bit more proactive in the UK when it comes to careers and job searches. In Eastern and Central Europe in particular, I think it's more as I'll think about it after I've graduated rather than a year in advance, which is what I'm used to here.
Yeah. Okay. And does that play through into a one-size-fits-all strategy in terms of what Airproducts is doing across Europe, or are you approaching each market differently and reflecting where people are at in terms of their ambition and their drivers?
We can't apply one size fits all for graduates. Yes, it's a particular population, but we still have to streamline it and tailor it according to the local practices, whether that's through employment law practices or from talent management perspective. And the fact that I've got to point out, we don't recruit at Airproducts, we don't recruit hundreds and hundreds of graduates. We would probably recruit one or two graduates in each country, and that's why it is quite a bit of a mix. And I guess it's more work for me, but it's good to see that it will never be one size fits all.
Yeah. Okay. I guess one of the things that that I've noticed in my work across Europe and also beyond that is, it's very difficult to get a consistent level of measure about how effective the work you're doing from a talent acquisition and the talent development perspective might be. So in the UK, there are a couple of really well-known employer preference surveys. So High Flyers is the obvious one. There are others, of course. If you go outside of the UK, then High Flyers is clearly not known. But things like Universum become much better representative, I guess, of where employers sit. What's your view on the market in terms of those things? Is there a perfect solution?
I think in the continent, as I say, in the continental Europe, the graduate market is still developing. It's not saturated. People are still getting to know graduate programs and the training programs per se. So Universum is a good reference point. But I think as we progress, there are other companies like Potential Park or Entry Park who are becoming more and more well known in the continent across both employers and universities and the students alike. So as long as there is a bit more of a link between the three groups, then potentially there is scope for, I would definitely say there is scope for suppliers there, yes.
Okay. I guess one of the things that interests me is around if you look at different markets, there are, as we've just been discussing, different things that drive different audiences and motivate people in terms of building out strategy to attract them. But is there anything that you think the UK can learn from those markets, which may be reinventing things that have been in existence in the UK for a while?
So just to clarify the question, that the continental countries can learn from the UK or vice versa?
Vice versa.
Okay. I think I would say from the employer interaction with universities, we say yes, in the UK a lot of employers work with universities quite intensely, but in the continent I think it's a long-standing relationship rather than a transactional relationship.
Okay.
And that probably is as a result of maybe geographically they're positioned much closer to each other, or equally it may be that there is a different history behind kind of university versus employer and different opportunities such as apprenticeships, for example.
Okay. Yeah. Is that something that's driven by the employer, or is it something that a change that could be affected by the career services working differently, or being, having a different approach to employers? Because I know there's a big feel, and whether this is right or not, I don't know. But I think sometimes employers feel like they're being a bit of a cash cow for careers, and I think career services, even sometimes career services, think that this is about providing an environment where employability is important. But fundamentally, people are there at university to learn and be academics. And I'm not sure the two actually see eye to eye all the time. What do you think?
I think there should be a combination of both. It's a push and pull factor. Yes, university is there for academia purposes, but equally it is around transferable skills. Otherwise, you would have gone to employment straight away after, say, sixth form or A-level education. I definitely think over the 4 or 5 years that I've been in the graduate market, particularly in the UK, the universities have become more welcome and really pushing in terms of getting their students more employable, and they're more forthcoming with employers. But equally, employers have got to offer those opportunities such as work experience, internships, for students to be able to practice those skills.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's partly where things like the higher education achievement record that's coming in. That kind of link between employability and life outside of academic and society performance when you're at university. Yeah. It's still quite new, though. I don't know whether I see very much impact of that on the way that employers work with potential candidates at the moment. I'm not sure whether you have or whether you see it happening over the next couple of years. What do you think?
We don't use it at the moment, but I definitely see scope for it. I mean, even in the year that I've been here at Airproducts, because of engineering, I guess there is more focus on academia and knowing the basics as opposed to some of the other humanities maybe, or softer subjects, you know, geography, etc. So there is quite a strong emphasis on technical knowledge, but equally it's moving away from that towards transferable employability skills. So higher education report can really help with that.
Yeah, okay. Well, us softer geography people are always adept in communications, of course. So
I have nothing against geography people.
So interesting differences then between markets. I guess one of the things that might be quite interesting for people to hear from you is around, you know, what if you were to go back into the start of your career and think about something that maybe didn't go as well as you would have liked. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about something that stands out for you and how you might change that if you were approaching the same problem now.
I guess for me, every experience is a good experience. I'm much of a positive person and enthusiast for anything that I come across. I can't say that I've made any career mistakes. Maybe in 10, 20 years down the line, when I would have had a career history of 35 years, perhaps some of those things I'd look back on and review and and approach differently. I think for me, I can't really say that there is anything that I would have done differently to what I have done and where I've ended up now.
Okay. Well, let's look at the positive angle of that then. So what's the thing you're proudest of in your career so far?
This is about probably setting up new apprenticeship programs. I've done that consistently with my 2 previous employers, and currently in the process of doing that here with the school leaver program. So for me, when I said about innovation and kind of upgrading and developing and moving forward with the talent development and entry level arena is probably one of those things that I'm really passionate and really kind of encouraging about. So setting up, I guess, such strategic programs for the longer term and looking at different ways to just graduates is a big achievement for me in a business that has, over the years, probably considered graduates as the only entry point into an organisation.
Yeah, okay. Do you think that's because the way that people think about apprenticeships has shifted, you know, fairly dramatically over the last 5, 6, 7 years, you know, away from being old industrial apprenticeships where you're learning by repetition through to, you know, to your point, you're learning about innovation by being innovative as an apprentice?
Yeah, I think that, but also the fact that many of our employees are parents and tuition fees are getting quite high, so they are looking at alternative options for their children. So their mindset is changing, and therefore they're influencing their children to think, children and career services at school and teachers to think differently about apprenticeship services and apprenticeships altogether.
Okay, so at what stage are you beginning that outreach? Are you beginning it at 16, or are you going later or earlier, or how does that work for you?
We actually at Airproducts reach out to 7-year-olds up to 18. So we sponsor projects, as in we actually attend and do lots of design projects with the students, but we also participate in with partners like SATRO, which are Surrey specific, or WISE, Women in Science and Engineering, who really support and guide the principle of getting engaged with the students much early on, because by the age they're 14, they would have made their choices as to how scientific they will be in GCSE and A-level.
Yeah, okay. I can imagine, I'm father of a 9-year-old, so I can imagine how interesting actually it would be for somebody of that age to think about what the different parts of air would be, particularly if there was an explosion involved. Is that sort of take that you play to communicate with people at that age, because they're clearly not all that interested in, you know, a job beyond there will be one at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of our STEM ambassadors or Airproducts ambassadors go out and do LIN demonstrations, which is liquid nitrogen demonstrations, which do involve lots of bangs and, you know, making ice cream and etc., which is one of those drivers as to the inquisitive why. You know, why does this happen and how does this happen? And that's the biggest thing for us, is to ignite that spark, and then the students will follow through and you know, do a bit more research themselves because they're passionate. You know, they'll be interested in it. Yeah,
it's a secret, right? This, but we're looking at schools at the moment for our daughter, and one of the really interesting things is going along and seeing how the science teams do present that. And there is lots of ice cream, and lots of banging,
Yeah.
which is great. So
I'm a fan myself.
yeah, it's a delight for as a father. You can go and have a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yes.
So I suppose what I wanted to do also was to look at your perspective on the world in terms of looking forward, because some of those changes that we've been talking about over the last few years are getting faster. It seems to me, the way that the opportunities we have actually to communicate with people and the way that happens. So I wanted to get your view on, if you look over the next 5 years from an employer's perspective, what do you think the biggest challenges are going to be for UK and maybe wider European players? What do you think?
I think technology, as you pointed out, social media, etc., is a big player. Not in the respect that it's going to be a recruitment drive through social media, but it's expectations of the Generation Y and Z that are coming into the employment world in the next 5 to 10 years. Their expectations are much quicker. Therefore, we as employers need to react and answer and liaise with volume recruitment and queries very quickly. And unless there is technology put in place from the employer's perspective, then obviously it will be difficult to engage from the point that we want to engage with students or with population. I think things like video interviewing will definitely be something that's not unheard of. We at Airproducts are testing it out this year after giving it a bit of a pilot last year. So hopefully we'll see some of that being utilised not just for 1 year but in continuous. And finally, I think the concept of different generations in workplace won't be a big phenomenon anymore. It will be a natural thing. So when we talk about diversity and getting more employees to accept diversity through workshops, etc., that will be unheard of probably in the next 5 to 10 years, because most of Generation Y has grown up with, or has moved around different countries, or has grown up with people who are diverse in background or education or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I was in a meeting today actually, and part of the reason I was late for this, so you forgive me again, hopefully, but the conversation was around diversity and inclusion. I think there's a really interesting book written by Steve Frost, who's the guy behind diversity policy at LOCOG while the Olympics were on. And in there he writes about diversity being just there, but inclusion being the choice that we all have to make. And I think that's quite a powerful motivator to say, actually, this is just something that's there. You can either make people feel part of what you're doing or not, but diversity is just reality. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess it's because the world has moved on and it is the norm. It's not something that you need to make an effort to understand.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, but just the effort actually is in the other thing you're talking about, so video interviewing, which seems to me, I mean, clearly we're doing this, right? So we're in different places, talking over computers. To me, it feels quite normal. I guess there are other people who might feel like it's a bit alien, but I don't understand why people are so reticent around video interviewing. What did you learn from your earlier trials that kind of persuaded you that it was the way to go?
I think it's apart from the obvious of cost-saving elements, a lot of my stakeholders were really concerned of the fact that we're going to lose the personal touch, because the video interviewing that I'm talking about is on demand or asynchronized, so something that's pre-recorded as opposed to live like we do now. Yeah. However, we have got feedback from the candidates, and they actually thought that it was really innovative, it was really different. There are lots and lots of ways around that. Coming over around that candidate interaction, from recording yourself asking the questions, through to welcoming, using it as an onboarding tool. So for us, I think it wasn't that much of a convincer. It was pretty clear that this is the way forward, and we don't need to wait for lots and lots of other companies to trial out to learn about or have lessons learned kind of process. Let's try it, let's see what it does, and clearly it works.
It's interesting that it might be giving you competitive advantage in terms of the way that people feel about you as well. That's probably an unintended consequence, I guess, but that's an interesting outcome nonetheless.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we are quite a traditional company, so for us, when we talk about video interviewing, or when I started doing that about a year ago, it was a bit of a
Yes.
panicking moment. What do you mean we're going to be talking at screens? But from kind of reviewer even perspective or assessment perspective, it is very it's easy to use and it's compatible with your lifestyle. You don't have to be in the office to be doing that.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to bring the conversation to maybe something that's maybe a bit more immediate. We were talking about, what's going to be the most important technological changes that are going to affect us, or the challenges that are going to affect us as employers most over the next 5 years. What do you see as being the most immediate things that need addressing by the majority of employers?
I think from internally and moving into specifically a talent acquisition function, it's probably moving away from a talent acquisition specialist or recruiter, or however you want to call it, to being an advisor, and not just as a title, but actually a coach, especially when it comes to hiring managers and making the right decisions. I personally experienced it, the syndrome of I've hired this person, or I've hired a similar profile for years and it works. That's not going to be sufficient anymore. The time is moving on. So I think it is more immediate. It needs to be addressed by employers through whether it's internal training or through the culture of the organisation. But for me, definitely, and I see it here at Airproducts, advising and guiding rather than probably accepting and not challenging is what makes it different and what makes the results actually memorable and stand out for the right reasons.
Okay, that's interesting. The move there is away from being a transactional function, which is basically onboarding or attracting, recruiting, and finding talent to much more of a talent development role, or a business advisory role.
Yes.
I wonder, I know that you guys are doing this really well, so you're not allowed to say it's Airproducts as your answer to this. But do you think there's an employer that's kind of stand out in terms of how that's working for them at the moment?
I will be a bit biased, but I genuinely believe that DHL, supply chain function in particular, do that a lot, quite well, from kind of recognition and talent engagement perspective of their employees, through to awards and diversity agenda, which encompasses the talent development. But equally, I think Sky has really progressed over the last 2 to 3 years in terms of how they address the talent management agenda in particular, and merging the two rather than having the recruitment and progression as two different teams, for example. So I know they, whether it's from roles that they recruit for their internal teams through to their genders that you can see and being advertised as well, that is quite clear. But I think Sky and DHL are getting there.
I think I'd echo that. I don't know very much about what DHL are doing, but I'll look into it and find out more. It sounds interesting. But I just wanted to pick up on the Sky thing. I think that's really, if you think about their consumer positioning, which is believing better, and the challenge that then gives you as somebody working in Sky, irrespective of which department you're in, to always try and do something better and to push yourself and stretch. That's the driver there, and I think that it's one of the purest examples of a business having a central value proposition that works really well from a consumer perspective, but also motivates and informs the way that people behave, that I've come across actually. And I don't know whether you think that's the thing that enables that, or whether there's something else in Sky that's driving that as a process.
I think they probably recognise that without talent development function or dedicated team or people to focus on that agenda, everything from succession planning through to diversity even, then they're not going to be able to progress and develop as their business grows. Because obviously nowadays it's very different to how it used to be in the past. So, and I think that's every company is now recognizing that factor. It's just how quickly they adopt their practices, and how at which point in the agenda is talent development. Is it at the top or is it at the bottom on the CEO's agenda?
Okay. So our 25 minutes is coming to a close, Marina. I wanted to know a little bit more about what your plans are for you in the next 12 months. What are you hoping to achieve? What are your main goals?
I think personally or professionally more, I do want to increase our employer brand in the continent. We have been doing that pretty well over the last couple of years in the UK, but I think us not being a well-known company altogether, that's a big challenge. So that's probably over the 12 to 24 months. And also just kind of broadening the arena of entry-level talent and the business to understand that it's not just about graduate recruitment. There are different options, different arenas. So that's probably my personal challenge from within the organisation. And personally, I think I'd love to finish the house by Christmas.
Yeah.
And go back to Latin American dancing, which I haven't done for a couple of years, but that's kind of a hobby of mine, which I've had to put on hold because of that, and travel and etc. and all the other fun things.
Well, you have to tell me more about that when we next catch up. You should have told me that at the start, and then we could have we could have that as a theme running through. So I just want to say thanks very much for your chat today. I think it's been really insightful, actually, not only in terms of introducing me a little bit more to Airproducts, but also understanding a bit more about the challenges across Europe, and also how maybe things need to change to help businesses perform better, and how HR and talent acquisition can fit within that. I don't know if you've got any parting words of inspiration or advice for anybody watching that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I guess for any of my fellow graduate recruiters, this is quite a busy season, so embrace it, enjoy it, and you never know, some of those people that you speak to on campus will actually meet you face to face at the final stages. So I know it's quite a busy, hectic time, but enjoy it nevertheless, because it's the fun part of the job, well, at least for me anyway.
It should be. And that suitcase can soon get packed away afterwards, right?
Yeah. And for anybody who wants to get in touch with me as well, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm an avid LinkedIn user, so do get in touch.
Great. Thanks, Marina. We'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile on the show notes for this, so people can get hold of you really easily.
Thank you very much for having me as well, which is a pleasure.
No, it's been fascinating. Thank you very much. So, thanks very much for watching us. Hope you've had a good time just listening to our chat. I think there's been lots of insightful and inspiring content there. Thank you very much, Marina, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.